going, everyone? This is about my third time recording the intro for this video because, well, I've basically been trying to track down a coolant leak on my 2008 Saab 9.3 Turbo X, and as you can see, the car is kind of torn apart right now, and I figured out where that coolant leak is coming from. So when I started recording this video, there were like two different places I thought it was coming from, so I took apart more stuff that I needed to. For example, the fender liner, and everything is out down here, and I have, some stuff out here that I don't necessarily need to take off. But nonetheless, I'll show you guys where this coolant leak is coming from. So you have your water pump right there, right where the flashlight is on. That's a coolant line that's loose right there, possibly where the leak is coming from. And at first, everyone was telling me that the leak was coming from the water pump, but once I got this motor mount off, which you'll see me take apart here in a minute, you can see that the coolant is actually coming from above the water pump, i.e. from right here. So Matt from Saab Parts is sending me out some new gaskets. Of course, to access this right here, I still have to take off this charge pipe, and then we should be good. But pretty much now, everything else is taken apart. So what I'm gonna do now is just roll all the footage of me basically tearing the car apart. I'm gonna pretty much cut out everything where I'm like, oh, I think it's coming from here, or oh, I think it's coming from here, because I said that like 6 different times, and now I finally know where it's coming from. So it might be a little bit chopped up, but hopefully it'll still be good, so that way you guys can see the process of how I got to where I am right now. And then we'll catch back up once I have that charge pipe off. If I look up here, I believe this is around where the water pump is. That is most certainly coolant, although the leak was never dripping from that area, which is why I am so confused. So I have no f***ing clue what's going on. So I just spoke to Matt at Saab Parts. I showed him the picture, the last shot that I showed you guys of the side of the engine down by what looks like the water pump, and he mentioned that the gaskets around the water pump and the O-rings are a common failure point on these cars, which I had no idea about. So it appears that that is most likely the problem, and from what I've heard, it's work. It's a good amount of work, but it's nothing extremely difficult to do. So I'm going to get a better look at the side of the motor now. So I'm going to take the wheel off and then get the fender liner out. These wheels look so weird without the center caps. I don't know why. They look cool, but they look weird. So that gave me a little bit of a better view. There's a better shot of where that coolant was leaking out of the water pump, I'm assuming, which we'll hopefully confirm here in a few minutes. But now I guess I gotta come up top and take some of this stuff off. Another benefit of having an open air intake or DO88 intake, takes about 1/5 of the time to remove it. So now comes the fun / sketchy part, and I say fun sarcastically. We're gonna jack up the passenger side of the engine and take this engine mount off, because right now, water pump is pretty much straight right there, but can't see anything because V6 and crammed engine bay. So to start, we've got 3 16mm, one here, one there, and one there. And now there's 3 of these, which are E14s. It's important to note that you should also have probably have drained the coolant by now, like I almost forgot to do. So if you haven't done that already, do that. So I don't think this needs to come out because I've been tugging at it and it's not coming out. So instead of breaking something, you can see the nut I took out, I can just rotate it like this, so that way it's out of the way enough for me to access this, which is the whole reason why I'm taking it off in the first place. So now we've got to take off this big bracket right here that connects to the motor mount. There are 3 big bolts for that. Not sure what size exactly yet, but I know that they're bigger than 16mm, which was the size for the mount. So there's one here, one stuck behind these AC lines right here, and another one right inside here. So I've been working at that last bolt for like 20 minutes, and I finally am starting to get it loose, but because my 1/2-inch ratchet won't fit in there, I don't have the right extensions, I basically had to jerry rig it. So I have my 18mm with a 3/8 by 1/2 adapter, and I've been sticking the breaker bar in there because that's the only thing that'll fit in that space right here. And I've just been twisting it a little bit, twisting it a little bit, twisting it a little bit. So it's taken forever, but I mean, it's working. Okay, so here are the 3 gaskets that I have. One of them is going to go on this line right here, and the other 2 are going to go on this piece right here, one of them being right around here, and the other one being right there. So to add to the choppiness of this video, I want to also add in that I have a new serpentine belt for the car, because the current serpentine belt is a bit worn. I'll show more detail later in the video, but I have a new serpentine belt sitting right here. So there's a good shot of the belt right there. Again, you can see that it's starting to crack just a little bit. So not in bad shape, like I said, but not in great shape either. And then here, of course, is that coolant that's leaking out from up above. So it's hard to tell on camera, but there is some wear on this gasket. Some of that is probably from me trying to pry it off, but it's not in the best shape. Now to get the other one off. To get this last one off, I actually ended up kind of spearing through the old one. It's quite difficult to get off, and it's really hard to not scratch anything with the pry tool. If you look in the dead middle of the screen there's a little bit of coolant there, kind of sitting in where that gasket should be, and as well as on this upper one, the circular one up here, there's some coolant laying at the bottom of that as well. So I'm going to clean both of these off and put the new gaskets on. So my guess would be the coolant leaked out of here a little bit. You can see some coolant sitting right there, kind of just went down here. Excuse the power steering freaking line that I'm too lazy to take off. Came down here, just kept dripping, and it kind of all pulled up right here, which also makes me think that it might have come off of this gasket right here where the light is on, because it's also pulling up right here, and then of course continuing down and down, before finally leaking out the bottom of the car. So I spent the last few minutes cleaning off this side of the engine, trying to get as much of the coolant as I could. Obviously it's not all gone. There's a good amount down at the bottom too that I got. But now we're going to do, I figured it's a good time to do the serpentine belt before I start to put all this back together, just so that way I have as much room as possible to do this. So first we're going to have to loosen it, get the tension off it, and that's the tensioner right there, so we're going to have to break that loose first. So I've got the breaker bar situated down in there. It's a really tight fit. Basically now all I got to do is pull on it. It's going to give me a lot of slack on the belt, you can see right there, and I'll just be able to pull it right off. Obviously you need 2 hands to do that, so I'm going to have to put the camera down. So you can see in certain spots this serpentine belt definitely not in the best shape. So now let's get the new one in. Now that the serpentine belt is done, I'm going to go ahead and put the new gaskets on. So I was having a little bit of trouble getting the radiator hose off of this, but I eventually got it off, and now it's going to make it a lot easier. The new gaskets are in, like I said, but having that radiator hose off now is going to make it a lot easier to install this back onto the motor. Someone's probably going to tell me in the comments if I should or shouldn't use gasket maker on this one right here, but I'm going to, just to be extra safe, because I don't want to not use any and then realize in the end that I should. So just to be safe, I'm going to do it. So now with the RTV on, let's get this on the car. So now that the supposed source of the problem is finally, hopefully fixed, I'm going to go ahead and put these two pieces that help hold the motor in place. I'm going to put those back on next. The motor mount is back in, so now I'm going to work on putting the charge pipe back in, which is probably going to be the most difficult thing left, and followed by the intake, and then after that we're pretty much going to be done. There's not a whole lot left to do. Of course I do still have to do the fender liner, although I think I'm going to wait on that just because I want the car to run and fill it up with coolant, and if for some reason it's leaking, I'll have somewhat of a good view of it from down here with the fender liner out. So I'll probably wait on this until I'm certain that it's been fixed. So the car is now fixed and all back together. I didn't show a whole lot of that ending process because, well, there was and there wasn't a whole lot to film. So let me explain. When you just watched that last part of me putting my hand over the camera, being all like edgy and stuff, you might have noticed that the entire front clip was completely removed. And that was because this charge pipe would not fit in unless I moved this. And then once I moved that, and in order to move that, I had to take the headlights out, the front bumper off, and once I moved that, I still couldn't fit it in, so I had to take the radiator brackets off, which allowed me to move the radiator, fan shroud, intercooler, all that forward, and then it just slid right in like it should have. So you might also notice I also put my engine cover back on while it is a little bit beat up right here, thanks to the heat from the turbo. I still think the engine bay looks a lot cleaner with it on. I don't know why I left it off in the first place to begin with, but yeah, car is fixed. I've probably put about 100 miles on it. This is like 3 or 4 days after I repaired it, so it's looking like it's good. I do also have a nav system that I'm going to be getting installed on it tomorrow, and I will be filming most of that process. So you can see I have the just the normal standard radio. I was gifted an OEM nav unit that will, of course, like I just said, be installed. So look forward to that video coming in the near future. But like I said, car is all good. I'm happy to have it back on the road. That's it for today, guys. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a big thumbs up. Once again, thanks to Matt at Saab Parts for all the help he gave me with this and sending me out those gaskets and O-rings in such short notice. I'll see y'all next time.